All right. Hello, and welcome everyone to the Limitless Ladies Network, where our mission is to help women build holistic, empathetic self-care and well-being. Before we get started on today's session on gratitude for good health, I just wanted to do our quick disclaimer as usual, to let you know that the content that we're providing is for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be advice, nor a substitute for professional medical advice, nor is this information to diagnose or treat any medical or health conditions. Those seeking treatment for any specific diseases or ailments should consult with a qualified physician, as always. We make no representations, nor any warranties, or assume any liability for the content within. So I am so pleased to have today Pamela Thompson, who's my dear friend from Wellness Within, joining us to talk about gratitude for good health. So welcome, Pamela. I'm so glad to see you.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for inviting me onto this webinar. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your kind of backstory and what it is that you do.
Okay, well, my husband and I are in business together. We own a business called Wellness Within. And what we do is we work with people to reduce their levels of stress so that they can thrive in their lives. And it's a holistic approach. It's definitely mind-body connection. We do a lot of education on what that even means, provide people with the tools and techniques that they can use in their own lives to reduce those levels of stress, which are really causing so many discomforts in their lives, not just emotionally, but mentally and physically.
Physically.
So, yeah, so people who come to us actually have amazing results in terms of their health, their happiness, and their well-being. So that's kind of it in a really tight nutshell.
That is fantastic. So I have actually worked with you on a few occasions myself. So just tell us also a little bit about the different services, because I know that you do a couple different things, you and your husband.
Right. Well, first off, I did mention the education. We do a lot of education on the mind-body connection, what that means. And that's an important piece that's missing in our health field in general.
I
Um,
agree.
we tend to just look at the symptoms, the problems, the hurts in our shoulders, our stomachs, our wherever. So we do a lot of education on that. Some of the techniques that we utilize are EFT, emotional freedom techniques, which some people know as tapping, which
Mhm.
is a very powerful science-based technique. We do something called Psych, which is also mind-body tool and technique that actually accesses the subconscious and can help shift limiting beliefs to supportive beliefs. We also do emotional code, which is another mind-body tool and technique that helps to release trapped emotions. We all have them from things that have happened in our lives, the emotions that we don't allow to flow through us. Emotion is energy in motion. And when we don't allow that to occur, not consciously, it's a subconscious thing, we squash it, we push it away, we ignore it. They get trapped, but they have an energy that lives within our bodies. So, and then it's impacting us in many different ways. So we can help to release that as well. And then there's a lot of heart math um, techniques that we utilize. There's the deep breathing and, mindfulness. So all of this combined, is really beneficial for reducing those
Awesome.
levels of stress.
I mean,
Mhm.
I've worked with you on the emotion code, which I'd never even heard of before. And, it was 2 or 3 sessions that we had done together. And I thought that it was pretty impactful in terms of one, identifying some of those hidden traumas and hidden fears and different emotions that were there and not even realizing that they were causing these like blockages, right? So
Exactly.
releasing some of those things and even how far back they go, right? Because you had mentioned to me that some of them were like 5 generations back. And I was like, wow, it's amazing that your cells in your body can actually store all of that, either
Exactly.
happiness or trauma within your body from others.
Yeah, exactly. It is quite an amazing um, um, thing, this mind-body connection. And it does energy is energy, and we are all composed of that energy, and it can carry from generation to generation.
Yeah,
So it certainly is fascinating.
it's
Mhm.
very fascinating. Um, so some of the things that I have come across with, gratitude is just an amazing gift, and that's what we're here to talk about today.
Mhm.
Things that we can do to actually incorporate that into our daily lives and
Mhm.
our general routines. So I know a few things that most people think of. Journaling. I do journaling usually a few times a week. I try to do it every day, but not always.
Mhm.
Bed and just kind of journal about my day, some of those things that have happened throughout the day, or things that I want to manifest, or just things that I need to get out of my head so I can sleep better. I actually recently went to a women's seminar on gratitude, which was very interesting. It was like a 2 hour session. And one of the key takeaways that I had never really thought about and I started introducing was, instead of just writing down like your laundry list of all those things that you're grateful for, the more important thing is actually to just pick one and write down 5 reasons why you're grateful for that particular thing, because it
Oh,
actually
that.
kind of reinforces the reason why, um,
Mhm.
and kind of brings up a lot more emotion, I think, to it, which I
Mhm.
thought was interesting. So I started doing that piece the last few days, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that we underestimate the power of gratitude. It is a very impactful tool. And we often just think of it as a, oh, it's a nice thing. It's a nice thing to be thankful. But it can be a really powerful tool for raising our energy, for softening, um, any discomfort that we may have, emotional discomfort. And one of the things that you touched on there was the emotion. If when we're expressing gratitude, if we can actually get into the emotion of it, that's when it is most impactful for us, is to actually feel it within our hearts, feel it within our bodies somewhere. When we're thinking of something, there's always a body sensation that goes along with it. So, expressing, even writing like you, journaling that gratitude and the reasons why, and get into it, really getting into it, that emotion.
Yeah, because again, the energy piece, right? It just kind of draws on it. So I love that idea.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
and meditation was something else that we typically always think of. And I did a session last week with another colleague, Endora Shaviris, who's done meditation. And I thought that that was very insightful in terms of the practice of doing it and the steps, right? Like grounding yourself so that you are grounded before you even move into any kind of gratitude or anything like that, just connecting with the earth, which I never really thought of as a major step to do, right? But we're all on this planet, and it makes sense that with that energy, you just want to ground yourself, right?
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing. And that's another thing in terms of grounding. When you're grounding and having the appreciation for this earth, being here, and it can just explode. I think in terms of what we're grateful for, like just basically walking on this earth and thinking, "Ooh, I'm grounding. I'm thankful that I have this." And then, wow, look at the trees and look at the beauty of the leaves and the intricacy and the colors. And we can really get to be very granular with what we're grateful for. It doesn't have to be just these big items like I'm grateful for the roof over my head and the food that I have. Um, it's you can just being grateful for the simple things of, oh, you know what? My hair today looks great. I'm so thankful for that.
Right.
It's just these little things that we poo-poo, but what it does is it raises our vibrational energy, the frequency that we feel, and we feel good. And when we're feeling that way, the negativity is less. So our perspective is now more focused on the positive than the negative, and we feel good.
Yep.
Um,
And
and
who
that
doesn't feel
emanates
good?
out. I'm sorry?
And who doesn't want to feel good, right?
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
that increases our health
Mhm.
in the long run, especially when we practice gratitude regularly. It
Right.
increases our health. So there's a lot. And there's another thing that people don't um, associate with gratitude, but it increases your sense of self-esteem. And because what it does is it decreases what we call the social comparisons.
Mm.
So when we compare ourselves and when we're looking at others and we're saying, oh, they've got more money than me, or boy, how come they got promoted and I didn't? That lowers our own self-esteem. So this jealousy or resentment of another's success or abilities or whatever, lowers our feelings toward ourselves. When we appreciate another's accomplishments, well, good for them. I'm so happy for them. Congratulations. That increases our self-esteem. So that's another piece of the gratitude that that we're not aware of, that it really can increase our own self-esteem and self-worth.
It's true. There were lots of studies that were done about that and improving
Mm,
self-esteem, just writing down some of those basic things. You always have your to-do list, but if you go through your to-do list and you may have 20 things on your to-do list, right? Mine's extremely long. So I try to focus on, what I call my 3 MITs. So my 3 most important things per day. Sometimes I don't always even hit those
good
three
for you.
things because you have multiple different distractions, but you get that piece of being able to write it down and get the endorphin of crossing it off the list, right? So sort of like journaling, but just keeping
Mm,
track of it so that you can boost your self-esteem, but also
mm,
it's going to reduce your depression, right? Because there was actually a study of
absolutely.
over 70 studies were actually done with over 26,000 people, and they actually associated that they had higher levels of gratitude and lower depression when they were found that they journaled regularly. That's
Absolutely.
pretty
And
impressive.
it is impressive. And there's a little caveat there of being gentle. Like if you have this long list, like you talk about, and if for whatever reason one of those distractions comes along and you don't get those most important things done, to say, okay, that to tomorrow's list, rather than, oh man, I failed again. I didn't get this done. It's gentle. That's such an important piece. And that's what gratitude helps us to do. You know what? I'm glad I was able to help my friend who called me at the last minute. Wasn't it great that I had the opportunity to do that? That's the
Right.
gratitude piece rather than saying, oh man, that took me away from what I was doing, sort of thing.
Right.
So,
And giving ourselves grace is
yes.
as easy as it is to give somebody else grace for those mistakes, right? So that goes to that self-care.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it does. And you were talking about the journaling and writing down things you're grateful for and focusing on one. And that's a great practice to do in the evening before you go to bed, is to, and not even, you don't even have to write long things, but write down 15 or 20 things that you're grateful for that maybe happened during the day or just popped into your head. Doing this before going to bed, what that does is shift your mind to the positive. Okay.
Yes.
Because just by our nature, we have a negative slant. That's the way we have evolved. So if we can shift to focusing on what we're grateful for, that increases our sense of well-being and allows you to just relax more. And now you're going to bed with these positives in your mind, and you're not carrying the negative into your sleep and waking up with the negative. You're carrying the positive and waking up with the positive.
And that's
So,
generally when I journal, actually, is in the evening.
ah,
And this workshop had an interesting spin on that as well, because, sometimes I've heard this as well, because your mind's always racing, especially nowadays with all the things that are coming at you, right? So you can write down some questions that maybe you're not sure of, right? Like, okay, universe, provide me with an answer to something, right? Like you're undecided on something and it's been bothering you. But if you write that down, she said
mhm,
that your subconscious will kind of help still hold that thought for like the next day. And then when you go to journal the next day, you'll be able to look back at that question and most likely figure out at least a step forward or some type of an answer to that question that you are uncertain of. But yet it also gets it out of your brain, which is what I need, right? To be able to fall asleep.
Absolutely, absolutely. The benefits are just immense. They really are.
So speaking of benefits,
Yeah.
actually, I know that you and your family have been going through some kind of unforeseen, maybe health issues recently that you've been dealing with. So if you want to share your story and how gratitude has helped you, that'd be amazing.
Oh, yeah, sure. Very unexpectedly in July, my husband was found he had prostate cancer. And so kind of knocked us for a loop, of course, at first. And um, being in this field, we knew that we wanted to do something that was more holistic and integrative than traditionally is done for prostate cancer. And we did some research and found this center out in Arizona. So we've been in Arizona now for 3 months, almost 3 months, at a clinic, a Brio Medical Center, receiving some very holistic and integrative treatments. And my husband Brad, has improved immensely through this process. A lot had to do with his mind-body work that he did every single day. He never went on any chemo, which they do provide that chemo, but it's only at a very micro dose. It's a 10% dose
Wow.
intravenous, but he never needed to go on that. And his his PSA count now has been normal for 2 weeks.
Wow.
So yeah, it's pretty exciting. And so in terms of gratitude, I can speak just from my own experience here, because as a caregiver, and our daughter was here as well, because she experienced some autoimmune issues that she has struggled with for years and had lots of pain, and nobody could find anything for her that would work. And they just told her, you just have to live with this, or this is all in your head kind of thing.
I've been in
And
that situation myself. Hence why
yeah.
this network has been created.
Yeah. And when we got here, we found that they also had dealt with some autoimmune issues. So she immediately jumped on getting in contact with them and came for 5 weeks. And she had some pretty intense treatments that were very unique. One was a hypothermia, which raises your temperature
Mhm.
to fever level, and it sustains it for a while in order to combat what's going on inside, just like a fever would do for a virus or something.
Right.
And they absolutely found what was going on for her, which that in itself was awesome, because now she knew what she could do about it. She's had some good results with that. The pain has lessened and her energy has improved greatly. So yeah, so for me, in terms of gratitude, because of this holistic approach, my sense of fear for the unknown of what was going to happen, and the future of, you hear all these stories about, or real life experiences of people that have gone through regular treatments, and then the hardships that it's left them with. And that was greatly reduced. And I was so thankful to the people that were so open-minded here. They do things in a very different way, and they're open to listening with the individual. That was a piece that was the gratitude there was like, wow, I feel like a person. I feel not a number, not just someone who is on a protocol train that's moving fast forward. I'm someone who, like, just for example, the chemo for Brad, it was slated for him to have that in the 3rd week. Because his numbers were coming down, they said, you know what? we don't think you need that. And they talked with him and they took it off the table. They could have left that on and we wouldn't have known the difference. But they
Yeah,
did.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like such a breath of fresh air when you can work with a practitioner that
Mm,
sees you as an individual and knows that you are a unique person, that every
yes.
single treatment that has been given to thousands before you is not necessarily the treatment that you need for you.
Yes, absolutely. That individual piece. And that's what they did for us. So every day, I know my gratitude for being here, that sustained me greatly because there was a lot, there's a lot as a caregiver, there's fears, there's, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of taking on the all the roles of feeding, shopping, cleaning, all of that kind of stuff that generally we shared. And and being there as a support, an emotional support, not as a partner that can bounce things back and forth and say, this is what's going on for me, and I need some support right now, but being the one that is always there for the support. I was grateful that I was able to do that. My and just doing that journaling that you talked about, Tammy, of writing it down and saying, okay, finding the things that I was grateful for, grateful that my husband didn't have as many symptoms, grateful for all the people, the upbeat attitude, grateful for the integration of everything that was at our fingertips. We could have, nothing was off the table there in terms of care, of techniques. And, so that gratitude helped me to stay in a place where I didn't get depressed. I didn't get into the spiral of fear of, oh my God, oh, this little thing went wrong. Oh my God, I never got into that. And so I'm grateful for the gratitude that I was able to have. And that sounds kind of silly, but it isn't. Um, so yes, the gratitude really sustained me a lot. And I know it did for Brad because, and I can't, I mean, he's not here to speak, but his, the people there that he was so, he always often said this, these people are wonderful. I'm so thankful that we're here. I'm so thankful we found this place.
I know it's amazing that you had that experience to be able to just work so closely with a team that was there to support him every step of the way. And I love the fact that every time that I heard from you, his numbers were like astronomically high in the beginning before you left. And
Mhm.
I'm sure there was a lot of fear, but I could see that you were very calm, and you were even grateful in the beginning. I remember just being calm, saying everything is going to be fine. And he looked a little nervous, of course, because it's the unknown to him, right? But yet you're there supporting, and your positivity was just, amazing. And I just loved hearing every single time that we talked to you, his numbers had gone down, and they were able to tailor his whole treatment
Yes.
plan every single time so that it was reduced of not having to do chemo or any other bad drugs that would have an effect on him. That's just amazing.
Yeah, and they were so willing to try things outside of the box. Like he's on a 1/16th medication, oral medication, that is, it's generally prescribed 16 times stronger.
Wow.
And it's specifically targeted for the type of cancer he has. And it's been amazing. So yeah, and I do want to go back to that positivity too, because it wasn't a false positivity where I'm covering up, feeling, okay, everything's going to be okay. I knew in my heart that no matter what the outcome was, we were going to be okay.
Yeah.
So there's another piece of the gratitude is not to cover up an emotion or cover up a fear. It's a be genuine with the gratitude is, I guess, what I'm encouraging. It's
Yeah,
not a way.
feel the gratitude, right? Like, don't just say it. You have to actually be able to feel some of that gratefulness.
Exactly. And not hide behind it and saying, it's not a Pollyanna thing at all. It is a genuine, authentic. Get to that point if you can with the gratitude. And you can by just starting out when you don't, in a time when it's not uh, a big traumatic thing or a big, so that's where the daily practice of just looking around you. And I mean, I remember a coach that I had years ago had said to me, I want you to write down 50 things every night for a week before going to bed that you're grateful for. And it's like 50 things, and they had to be different.
Yep.
And so I guess one of the things that I realized was I'm so grateful for my hands. And then you can get into this, if you want to call it a rabbit hole. What can I do with my hands that I'm grateful for? I can peel potatoes.
Right.
People can't. I crochet, I garden, I knit, I write, I draw, all so many things that my hands can do. So I sign, I do American Sign Language. So all of these things that we take for granted, these little things,
Mm.
important. It's to say, yeah, that's what I can do. That's what I'm grateful for.
That is a great tip to be able to get so specific and pick one thing in your life and just get to that like granular detail of your hands or your eyes or your legs or,
Absolutely.
yeah, I love that. That's a great idea.
And I think that has been one thing too that has really sustained me and Brad because we've recognized how amazing the body is, our bodies are that we live in,
Yeah.
and all parts of them, our hands, our arms, our legs,
Yeah.
are all of our organs. And so that having that gratitude as a background that we have been living for a while has certainly contributed to the healing and the good health.
Yes, that is fantastic. I love your story. Like I said, I tell it lately to everyone that I meet because I love that, he's found a good place. He's healing. It's the mind, body, his nutrition stuff, which is, I love. So, eating
Yep,
healthier and cutting out certain things and just being grateful has really transformed his whole journey there. And it's been such a short period of time. So
it has. I mean, 3 months, when we look back, it's like, whoa, this has flown by.
I know it's been fast. So that's awesome.
It
Well,
is.
I know we're at time, so I just wanted to thank you again for joining me while you're out in Arizona. I
Thank
know there's a
you.
different time zone here, so thank you for joining me a little bit earlier today and
Mhm.
talking about all the services that you offer. Pamela is on our directory of holistic wellness practitioners. She is phenomenal, her and her husband. I've worked with her, as I mentioned, just great resource. So if you're interested in getting any of her services, I just kind of put our directory out in the chat and you can feel free to look up her information out there. And also don't forget to sign up for the Limitless Ladies Network emails so that you can be aware of any future upcoming events. We're looking at doing some in-person workshops, hopefully coming this year, and additional webinars on various different topics. So if there's anything as well that you'd like for us to start talking about with the ladies in our community, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to schedule and kind of get some of those topics out there for everybody in our community. So continue to be limitless. And Pamela, safe travels back to you and Brad, and congratulations again. I'm so grateful to have you and him as a friend and that he's doing great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for this.
Thank you. And we'll talk soon.
We will.
All right.